never thought I'd live to be 100. My daughter said, I'm not on the register, God forgot all about me. Oh, I think he did.
I was 99. I woke up about 4 o'clock in the morning. I looked out. I said, 29th of May, hey, you're 100, get up. So I got up. That's the only, there's no difference.
Well, I don't know. Somehow it didn't sink in that I was the 100. I just said that if I lived to be 100, that I'd be happy to die after that. So here I am, still alive.
But how does it feel to be 100? I don't know how to answer that because I feel the very same, like, and I don't see any change to when I was growing up or whatever, except that I have more comfort now. I'm not doing anything.
Doesn't make any difference. Except I find I can't get around quickly enough. I can't get on with the garden. I used to do a lot of gardening, but now I'm afraid I may topple over, fall into the rose bed.
It's terrible to think that you're sitting back and saying, I'm 100 and so and so. But anyhow, it doesn't matter really.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Susie. Happy birthday to you.
I had the birthday party in Ballinasloe, you know, and we got the cheque from your man, from Michael D, sure, for being the 100th. Yeah. Well, we spent that then in the party, sure. Yeah. If we didn't get it, we'd have to do without it. And I got a lot of presents and everything. Cards, you see all the cards. All the cards, the Lord says, and presents and everything. I did, a lot. The Lord says people are wonderful. And I said, when someone would die, I'd say, well, I must send them a card. And that'd pass off, and I wouldn't. Well, they wouldn't, so they sent the card to me, I'm telling you.
Do you know, I never get excited about anything. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm a different person. I never get excited about being there was a big crowd here that day, but do you know what? I never got excited about it. So I got over it anyway, but it took me a couple of days to get back to normal and not to lose the excitement.
I've no secrets. I just grew up a little girl running about. I was always very busy. No secrets.
If I'm asked it once, I'm asked it a dozen times a week. And my stock answer is, if you only dug a hole in your back garden today and filled it in tomorrow, you're doing yourself a good turn.
I never ate a vegetable in my life.
And I think that's the reason. They're all eating too much.
I was in the hospital a couple of years ago for a gallbladder surgery. I must have looked all right for my age. They want to know how old I was. Well, I told them, oh. They went and told the other girls. They came in, oh, Catherine, you look so... Wait a minute. Oh, have you got a secret? No. Well, what did you do? What work did you do? Well, I said, I worked a long time, and then I turned prostitute. Kathleen! I got so sick of it. I got so sick of it. How do you do it? I did.
I don't pass out of accent. It's just, yeah, our legs begin to get a bit, and the dodgy side, like when you're walking, you'll go all right, but slow.
Hello, here. How are you? Are you keeping all right? How are you keeping?
Yeah, sure.
Good.
Still going on.
All together, that's 862, love. Have you got a club card? Have you no club card? No, you haven't bothered. You managed that? All right.
My father used to go to the market to sell vegetables. And he says, if I get any money tomorrow, I'm going to buy a pair of boots for my little doll. I was a year old then. And he was coming home, and the pony was a little bit wild. And he went over the ditch or something, and he was killed. He was killed, and he had the boots in his pocket. He left my mother with three of us. There was two boys older than me, and then I was the last one.
I think my first memory was getting a new pair of shoes. I remember putting my foot out on the floor, my mother to look at them. I was so proud of them.
I remember the first day I went to school. What I remember about it, I was thinking about that a while ago. I remember coming home from Montpellier with a new pair of shoes, and I thought that was lovely. There was a strap on them. And I remember the first morning we went, and the other girls was waiting for us at the crossroads. And they're all dead now except us, my sister and myself. And they were sitting there waiting for us to go.
In the summertime we went barefooted,
Always in the summertime, and you'd have the toenail knocked off your big toes. Your big toe would be always without a nail.
I remember my brother one day going down to Mass in his bare feet, and this man in the church said to him, Chair, you should go up and help the priest. But next day, the priest went down to the school and he got the cane and he gave Chair 2 swollen hands for going up to the altar without his shoes.
I got a slap the first day I was in school. Put up my hand, I didn't know the answer, and she had a big long ruler and she gave me a slap, the only slap I ever got.
They were nice only for one. There was one old bitch, God for Jimmy.
Yeah, we had a master there and he was a brute. A brute, and I met him afterwards in Dublin. And he said, "Oh, Jimmy Barry," he said, "delightful to see you." Well, said I haven't any delight in seeing you, said I. He was the cruelest master that ever was going, stood at a desk to school. He was a brute.
They were brutes. They were really brutes, the teachers were.
That's true.
They were savages, the way they treated the pupils.
They were, yeah.
And they got away with it.
Yeah.
Now, we were the victims always.
Sweet 16 and never been kissed. 1 and 6, 16.
Down Lover's Lane.
Down Lover's Lane, that's it, Hannah. Any lane you like. Legs 11, all the ones. Legs 11.
The lunches were light though. They're just bread and butter. The butter will be scraped very thin, I'll tell you. I often think of they'd scrape it very, they'd spare the butter as well. So I often remember one lady that was in the same class as me, and she'd open the bread like that. She'd say, "Oh goodness, will you look at all the butter she put on?" And I'd love it, it was over in mine like.
The few days you went to school, like, you ran off in the morning with a bit of bread in your pocket, and you'd have it eaten before you went to the school. Like. You'd have to walk maybe a couple of miles to the school.
The happiest period of my life, my early youth, when I was playing football and other games. That's about the happiest time of my life.
Then we had no money to buy footballs or anything, and we'd gather a heap of old rags and paper and make our own ball and we'd pack them and we'd be team ready to eat, and that's what we had the football for. That's how we made the football.
We'd all go out and we'd be standing here and one would be running and they're trying to catch that one. Catch, they should call it.
Skipping in the rope, and usually it's hopscotch, hopscotch, and played marbles.
Ball beds, skipping, catty, hide and seek, everything. All the kids played it. You never see kids out playing now. They all have their little machines.
They get the lads in swimming or ranting and steal their clothes. We had great sport. Not like now, they do nothing.
Lovely nice fire there now after a bit.
I remember 1916 when it broke out. I remember sitting on the wall with a red, white and blue flag. A French woman lived beside us and she gave me a red, white and blue flag and a stick. And I was sitting on the garden wall and my mother's sister came up and she said, "Where did you get that?" I said, "Mrs. Sweeney." And she nearly went berserk. The custom house was blazing and me with a red, white and blue flag.
There was a water tower on the Curragh and you could go up to the tower. And my mother and I went up in 1916 to watch the flames in Dublin. He was a British officer, my father. He was in the British Army. And he took the surrender in Dublin. As far as I know, he went round with a nurse called Nurse Farrelly, and they went round in a car and took the surrender. That's all I know. I'm not a bit political.
As things then moved on until the early 1920s, one year seemed to be worse than the previous one. You went from the end of the First World War, which I wasn't very mindful of, and then we drifted into the Black and Tan period. That was frightening.
They were an auxiliary police force, really. They weren't soldiers. They were police, auxiliary police. And they were largely people who had been fighting in France in the war.
They were what was available, but they behaved deplorably in many cases, antagonized the people who were probably glad to see them coming in the first place.
I happened to be going to school that time. They passed you on the road in the lorries and guns out of them and all that crack.
And all armed to them. 2 row, one facing one way and the other facing the other way, and they'd be going along the road. Another crowd looking front and another crowd in the back. That's the way they sat, and the guns, the rifles. Sometimes they'd fire at cattle or sheep in the fields and kill them, just for sport.
Oh, they were a dirty crowd. Remember the time the people were shot in Poke Park? I was there that day. The Black and Tans came in. They had that's the first time I ever saw one of those little guns. It's very small, little what would you call them? Little small, tiny machine guns. They were like a machine gun, that sort of thing. And they cut down a lot of people. 16 people, I think, were killed. There wasn't one single board of blame attached to them.
No, sorry. There you go.
Cool. And of course then, you see, you had the various units of the IRA, not greatly equipped, but very determined.
The old IRA, I stress old IRA, for obvious reasons, but they were our neighbours. We had a very good relationship. And we were Church of Ireland, which was, if you like, minority, and we were never interfered with. The only incident that happened, I think it was about 1920, maybe, our local church was set on fire. And it was saved from destruction entirely by our Catholic neighbours. That was before the word ecumenism was invented.
One time, my father saw some men coming up the drive, and he lit out of his dressing room window and waved his revolver out. He said, "If you come one step further, I'll shoot your heads off." There was the IRA, because he was a British officer. It was just life, things happening.
Oh, the IRA was in him, and I was very lucky man to get out of him. Very lucky. And you should have been told, but didn't you? You were threatened, and threatened badly. But they been lucky enough to get out of them.
And then we drifted from there on to the Civil War, and that was tragic.
We did things to each other during the Civil War, which, well, I won't say there were any worse, but there were certainly no worse than what the Blackentans did.
The pipes are calling from glen to glen.
You won't do that now when you're filming her.
What, love?
Singing. I said you won't sing when they're filming you. Will you? Will you sing a song when they're filming?
No.
No? Will you not?
No. I can't sing. I just...
You're not too bad now.
Sing to amuse myself.
Do you?
Oh, I met the best of men and women and immigrated, a lot of them. One would go to America, and she'd work a couple of years there, and then she'd send home the passage, and another would go, and then they were away. Maybe 3 or 4 ago, and they wind up. Yes. And they used to all gather in the house the night before they went. And they used to call it the American Wake. That's what mattered to them, because the mother, a good chance she'd never see them again.
I was happy but lonely. Happy but lonely. Happy but lonely. Left all my friends at home.
And we cried with everyone that went, because it was a terrible thing to stay there and watch your neighbour and everyone, and everybody just, it was like a death. And they would be there in crowds, and they'd come up from Charlottetown in the train.
And then of course they'd go to Cork Cove and went by boat, and it'd be 3 weeks nearly before you'd hear from them. You wouldn't have the letter back for that length of time, no. No. And that's the way it was in them times. Now you can hear from them, and they're in Ballinasloe, never mind. Yeah.
A reading from the Song of Songs. I found him whom my whole heart loves. The bride says this, "On my bed at night I sought him, whom my heart loves. I sought, but did not find him."
No, I can't say that I was ever, involved with boys very much.
Well, no, except when my sisters got married.
She got married to a very nice fellow, and his brothers now they used to come visit us, and we used to go visit them, and I thought they were very nice. Yeah, I remember all right being taken by them and being friendly with them. But I don't remember anybody else.
I suppose the happiest time really when I was 15, 16 and 17, and we'd meet a couple of fellas and go up the road, and have a snuggle in the ditch.
My sisters and I went to a meeting in the Salvation Army, and on the way home, holding my sisters by a hand, 3 little boys caught up with us and kissed us going home. That's my first kiss.
Well, the first kiss I ever was was remarkable. I seen her and she seen me and told her I loved her, and she said she loved me, and it was a snap one. I thought I might get a slappy face with it.
Yahoo! Oh, no, there was no scarcity of boyfriends. Well, I had loads of them. I was often telling them here. I was doing a line with a fellow there was a Protestant. And he was a nice lad and everything. My grandmother and my mother and all them, "Do you want to disgrace us?" And he was such a nice lad. So I'm telling you, I got out of him quickly off. I had to let him off. But he wasn't my first kiss either. I don't know who it was now.
I'd go out through the window when I wanted to go to a dance. That's all. No problem. Open the window and be gone in again in the morning before they get up.
The dens of iniquity, they called them. Dance halls, say. No, there was no dance hall in our parish. Wouldn't be allowed. Bishop. No. No dance hall.
I danced in every ballroom in Dublin, Cleary's, the Metropole, and the Royal, and everywhere. Dublin has changed rotten. There's nothing in Dublin now. I used to go to the Royal every Sunday. They had permanent seats there. And the cloakroom one used to say, "Someone here admires you very much." I said, "Who? I don't know anyone here." And she said, "Well, I'm not telling, I'll tell you someday." So I put in my coat, and I said, who is supposed to marry me? She said, "Charlie Elliman." Fella that owned the fucking Theatre Royal, one of the Ellimans. Maybe a Jew man. Jeez, me father go mad. I don't know what he had against him. I think he think they crucified Christ.
My mother, she decided she'd take in some lodgers. So she had a couple of men from CIE, from the railway. And that's how I met Bill. He was one of them. So that was great.
We met, we went out, we enjoyed ourselves. It just went just like that. Perfect, perfect.
But it never meant anything to me, isn't it funny? You know, I was still cool and calm and collect. I never got excited about it.
In our own day, we were, as we would use the term then, we can't use it so easily now, we would be regarded as egalitarians. We had our moments of romance and all the rest of it, and our enjoyable days and so on. But I must tell you that moral standards meant an awful lot in those days.
They were nice, all nice girls, like, but there'd be no blackguardism, like, you just went home with them.
And you know the rest. I'm not mentioning. No, I say. That was good.
I had decided to propose to her this day, and we went to a dance. And I remember purposely I didn't take any drink when we were at the dance, and I was cold stone sober going home. And it was on the way home from the dance that I suggested to her that she'd marry me. She agreed.
He said, "Will you marry me?" And I said, "Of course I will," true as a foregone conclusion. Yes, that was it. No surprise.
I think the most romantic thing was when he proposed to me. Not to know that he loved me.
When I told her I was becoming engaged, my mother says to me, "Well, I hope, child, you know what you are doing." Because she said, "You're full of life, and he's very quiet." And he said, and my mother says to me, "You're asked everywhere." I was invited to every party. But my mother was hard against it. But I went through it, and he was a very good husband.
My happiest every memory is Fred, my wedding day. It's my happiest. Getting married to the man I was really in love with.
I got married in Dublin. But you see, you couldn't have it at home because you'd have to bring the Dublin people down to the country, and there was no toilets or no bathrooms or anything for people to come down to. Not like in Dublin, you know, the pots in the bedrooms, and we used to have to empty them, wash them every day.
It was great. We had it at Robertstown, and we had a marquee on the tennis court. A lot of people. Lovely day. Sun was shining.
I didn't dress up and put on a big spread. They do it and then they're divorced and everything. No, I got married after work. After work. I was very humble.
Didn't marry. I had no money, sure. No, where were you bring the wife to? There are no houses.
Very, very quiet wedding day. When my mother gave the wedding in the house, he didn't want a big wedding. There was lots of things that I couldn't have. It's funny. But at the same time, like, he was a good husband. Only just like, I think what it was, he was jealous, so he didn't want to. That was my opinion. He was afraid to let me out of his sight. And I had my honeymoon down in Bray.
It was just pure luck that I got married to Jamesy, and we lived together for so many years. We had 8 children, and we were very happy. And We never fell out, and thank God.
No, that's the happiest times I had in my life was with my wife. I was with her since I was a child, and she's a child. We were only 2 children. And we were here together, and we were always together.
We were very happy. And then we got the house on Commoner Road. And he used to work in the Turkish baths. And the jockeys used to go in there to lose weight. And they used to give him tips. So he became a gambler. So I lost my home through gambling. He used to go to work every morning, go out at 9 and come in at 1, and go out at 2 and come in at 5. And he wasn't working at all for 6 months.
He wasn't a strong man, you know. He wasn't strong. Not a hard worker. He couldn't work hard. I had to be the slave. He liked his little drink. Every night he used to go down to the pub, go down the road and have his pint. Every night, it didn't matter. It'd roll off him what I'd say to him. You're not going down there tonight. I'm going for 1 pint. And I'll see some pals and we'll have a chat. And we only talk football and we only do this, and he'd tell me. But he was a very good man, like, you know. He was very good. Very good.
Wanted up number 2, quack. But I lost touch with everybody. It's only lately I'm going back to singing. So there you are. My mother was right. Scarlet ribbons, scarlet ribbons for her hair. If I live to be 100, I will never know from where came those lovely scarlet ribbons, scarlet ribbons for her hair.
Oh Lord, I always have to get my hair done, because I had a terrible moppy hair when I was young, and it was bright. I'd wash it and go out in the yard and get dry with, and it was fuzzy all the time, curly all the time, like. It wants a little help now, though, to have it, and Sandra's marvellous. She does a great job on it.
I cut my own hair, always cut my own hair. When it's wet, I part it in the middle then. I haven't stood in a dressmaker's in 20 years. Now the girls spend a fortune on themselves. False eyelashes, false this, false that. Now there's a girl down past the shops, lovely looking girl, if she left herself alone. She's her hair up there, blonde, dyed. I think she's 4 sets of eyelashes. You can't see her eyes. The lashes is down to here. Half a ton of black on her. I'd love to wash her and see her. She's a lovely girl, but she's ruining herself.
I want to be look pretty and young. Of course it's important. It's not important that I look old. I still use cream. But the other day she pulled a couple of hairs, long hairs. And I said, you know, when I said, you know, when I was young, I had to shave my legs. Now that I'm old, there's no hair on my legs. It wants to grow on my face.
Although I said myself I was always a good dresser, because when I was working in Wynn's Hotel in Dublin, I was the best. I was only a waitress, but there was the office staff and all, and I was the best dressed. I was judged the best dressed. I loved to dress. Style was everything to me.
Ah, the little poodle.
Is the hair all right?
Don't care.
You know, not at all.
Shit.
You are who
Huh?
you are, aren't you? I
Huh?
say you are who you are. But anyway, you're keeping well, aren't you?
Huh?
You're keeping well.
No, I had a very bad dose. I got diarrhea and vomiting for a fortnight. This is my first day out.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's the way I'm doing. I'm
Oh,
up in
God,
town.
I mean, legs are wobbly.
Do you know, I couldn't tell you when I was in
Ah.
town. I couldn't tell you when I was in town.
No.
I don't go into town.
I never got the vaccine injection in my life, and that's what gave it to
And
me.
you think that gave it to you?
Yeah.
It more likely
Ah.
did. Yeah.
No, I'm not myself.
No,
I'm
well,
not
neither am I.
100%.
Are you going away anyway?
I don't know. I was the oldest woman to fly Aer Lingus
I know
last
you
year.
were. Yeah, come in and tell you when they're
Ah.
supposed to. Did they not give you anything for it?
No.
A free
Doesn't
travel
bother
or
me
anything?
flying.
No, but they never gave you free travel or anything. Sure they didn't.
No. Okay.
For being that late, getting on the plane.
It was 33 degrees in the Canary Islands.
And you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
51, 50, 70, 90, 210 and 30, Miss Nolan, all right?
You can give me the money.
Where we go? Where we go to spend it?
We go to
Where will we go
Tenerife.
to spend it?
Tenerife.
Jace, that wouldn't bring us to Tenerife.
Why
It wouldn't
not?
bring two of us.
We
It
might
wouldn't
get
bring
we
one.
might get two Thai boys.
You'd be lucky.
20 Super King. Thank you.
When the children was here to go to school, the whole family around me here, that was happy. I was very happy when they just go to school and coming home in the evenings. That was the happiest time of my life. So it was. The family coming home in the evening, sometimes the ridge wet, and trying to dry their clothes out, but still I was quite happy. When I look back, I didn't appreciate it half enough when I had them.
You know I treated them well and they were well looked after and that, but when I'm sitting here all on my own now, I just say, well, my God, if I had them now, wouldn't I molly coddle them?
It was true, you know, when they're there on their feet and you know where they're. Then when they start going to dances and everything, the Lord saves, you couldn't sleep when you watch them to come home and wondering where were they and all that. You get used to that then again, sure. You do.
Well, I tried to bring my children up the way I was brought up. I did. I tried to bring them up. And I sewed and I knit and I did everything for them.
We had a lot of trouble in our marriage, not of our own, but sickness and deaths. We had 6 children, and 3 of them are still alive, but the other 3 are all dead for a good while. Deaths were, whatever you call it. And we had to put up with that when we were at it. Nobody can foresee what's going to happen when you're young. You don't expect things to go wrong, but they do go wrong, whether you like it or not.
I think the young men today are good in a way. They're more understanding with their children and their wives. But I think this living together and that kind of thing, I don't approve of that.
Oh my God, living together, real awful crime. They do them things now, but they didn't do them then.
But what about what do I call it? The 2 men living together. What do you call it? Many wonders about that, but it must be hard though, like, to accept those things. The Pope is talking a lot about gay people lately. You wouldn't know what he'd do. Whether he'd let them get married or what he'd do. If they're both alike, they should get married, they should stay together, I'd say.
It's not Ireland I knew anyway, any way you look at it. No. No, it is not, you know. It's not the same country at all, like, I mean. People have changed a lot. There's no mixing much like long ago. No neighbours much like years ago it was all. Help one another. And we were young lads, we'd often see a poor old man or a man and woman out making hay this time of the year, and by God, we'd all go in and throw it up for them. That was the way it was. If you seen anyone struggling doing anything, you would give them a day and then give them a hand at it. No word about money or anything like that. No, all free.
The other day there was a piece in the daily paper about a sergeant. He was out on duty, and this young lad came around the corner in a car. It was a dangerous corner, like, and he's speeding. So the sergeant stopped him And he got out and he was a young priest. So he said, do you know that you were going too fast? And do you know what the priest said? Aaron, will you fuck off? Oh, well, now, do you know what it is? I mean, he must be damn well used to saying it, or he wouldn't have it said so handy. Oh, I thought it was terrible.
Hello? Hello? Oh, I'm busy. Oh, is that you? Is that you now, Dan? I'm busy now making it. I'm busy now making it. Ah, there's someone talking to me. I'm busy now. I'm busy making a cake. I said I can't hear you. The cake has been destroyed.
Times had changed and they got better. And, you know, they had plenty of fruit. They had no fruit. I remember when I was in town and I brought oranges that were only in. And my eldest child, he kicked it around the house because he thought it was football.
I suppose our lives today are being run by computers. I don't have any Google or Twitter or I have no mobile phone, by the way, but I'm bloody glad to be mobile myself. I don't know, but we've had all that. We've had tremendous advances in medicine, in surgery.
And so when we got electricity, we didn't know where we were. Shining all over the place. You could see every bit of dirt in the house. That's what the show. That's what we were talking about. Now you can see the dirt, and you couldn't see it before with the candle and the lamp. Ah, that dark. Good.
Well, I suppose the television was a great change for everybody. They can see different pictures and all that, you know. And everything, and the washing machine is marvellous. You put in your clothes now and they're washed, and then you dry them, you can iron them. And then you put them into the hot press and you heat on.
The washing machine is the best thing that ever came out. I think it is. People used to be putting down big pots of water by the fire, and if someone came in, you'd take them up and that'd be that day. And the next day you'd have to start in again and put down 2 big pots of water again and rubbing all day, then a soap. There was no washing powder or anything that time, no.
First time I ever saw an airplane, and I was in it. That's out in the polo grounds out in Waterford. And I got the greatest thrill of my life, because I thought, it was grand, 7 and 6pence the ride was, which at the time was an enormous amount of money. And I had a brother there, Joe, and I went up to Joe and I said to him, any chance of getting on the plane? And he said, it cost 7 and 6pence, he said. I said, it wouldn't be worth it, said I. It's the first time. We were the first in the plane, but we might never come out of it alive. And so I chanced that. The plane started off anyway. Well, if I could only have got out of it. The minute it started off, my stomach started to go up in my mouth, because the other way he went over this way, you know, to turn around. Oh God!
When I got married and came to live here, there was only 2 cars there. Mylan's garage over there had a car, and Mr. O'Keefe up the road here, he had a car. That was all the cars out there. There's a car at every door now. 2 of them, maybe 3 of them in some places.
You're the key on this, huh? My driver's license expires in September. I have to face my GP and see whether he'll pass me for another session. So Elizabeth, I collect her every morning. I take her back after lunch. and she's quite happy with my driving. I'm not, listen, I've driven in England during the blackout. I've driven in France at the rush hour. I left Paris at the rush hour, driving like a bloody Frenchman. So I feel confident in my driving. And if I didn't feel confident, I wouldn't drive. I don't want to risk anybody else. And of course, if you run into me, it's my fault, even though it's yours. You say, that old bastard shouldn't be on the road.
I can drive better than I can walk, I can tell you. I love driving, I always did do. All my life, I was mad on driving. Mad on driving. I loved it. If you ask me what would be my greatest pastime, I'm driving my car. Driving.
The only sport I was interested in was golf, and that was the selfish pastime. You can play golf when you're on your own, you know what I mean? It's an ideal game for loners. And my wife was a much more sociable person than I am, and I still have some of her friends as my friends. She was younger than I was. She's dead a few years. But I hadn't many men friends of my own for some reason or other. Just what I didn't try. I was lazy.
Well, the saddest memory was the day I lost Phil. Really? Oh, that was at about 11 o'clock on a Thursday night. He was just had knocked off work. And he had gone down for a drink in the pub down the road when he collapsed. Now, whether he collapsed outside it or in it, I don't know. But it was a Thursday and it was very hard to get a doctor. They were ringing everywhere for a doctor. But they took him to Stevens's hospital that time. So.
Ah, yes. Went to town along with him and came back without him. He dropped dead beside me now. And the children were here, the 5 of them. No. Oh, that's it. No. And he would not go that day to the town, whatever we wanted. He wouldn't go without me. So I was with him until he died. Now, with him till he died.
When she died, I died. When she died, I died. And I didn't care after that now whether I lived or died, and I don't still care. What was she like? She was the nicest girl in town.
I'll never forget him. Actually, I dreamt about him one night, and I was so delighted to see him that I flew at him and put my arms around him, and that was in my dream, you know. No, I could never forget him.
In fact, it was only about a week ago I dreamt about him. Dreamt that we were back together again. But there was a rude awakening the next day.
I had true love with my first husband. And I suppose it was true love with my second. What else is there? So I loved Pat, my second husband, the Galway man, but I never loved anyone like I loved Vincent, Lord of mercy on him. He was an angel and he was a lovely type of man. Yes, I believe in true love, no doubt about that.
There's only one love. This is true or false. If you love a person, you love them, that's all.
If you do love a person, there's no doubt about it, you won't love any other one. Do you know? There's no doubt, like, I'd often think since my husband's death, well, I could never say that I'd meet a lad or man around there, oh, you know, you wouldn't think there'd be anyone to match him.
Well, I can honestly say I don't really miss him because it took a load off my mind. You know, I don't worry over him because he was a sick man like the last, and you feel more sorry for him than anything, like, you know. And you'd say when he passed away, well, thanks be to God, he's out of his agony.
I don't think I really loved my husband. We grew together. Now there's a girl down past the shops, and when they were 7 years of age, her mother used to say, if I catch you with that young fella again, I'll kill you. And they're married now, live in Palmerstown beside my son, and they're still together like that. And they were only 7 when they used to play together. So I think your life is mapped out for you.
I made me bed so I lay in it. I made me own bed so I laid in it. I didn't take my mother's advice. I mightn't have been so happy. I mightn't have lived to be 100.
Regrets. I've had a few. I won't say too few to mention, but you know, when you're going through life, I always say it's like when you're reading a horse. You look where you're going. You don't look back at the horse. I don't look back.
I did many things wrong in my time. I have to regret them. But I don't dwell on it very much because there's nothing I can do about it anyway, and the people that I did the wrong things to are all dead anyway, which is a good thing.
Meaning of life. That's a tough one.
You sit down and you look around you, you see the houses, they're filled with it, they're eating and they're drinking. For what? I don't know. We know very little about ourselves.
I know no more about it now than a babe unborn or just born. I'm no wiser about what we're doing here And I have no words of wisdom to give anybody.
Well, we're all put in this world for some purpose or other. It's how we use that purpose, another story. But we're all here for a purpose, and we all serve whatever purpose that is.
What's the meaning of living to be 100 years of age? Is there any meaning?
You can live too long. What do you want to live for and then nothing to live for? I've done all I wanted to do. I wouldn't want to be dependent on me family and worrying them. They've enough to look after their own families. But when I went around to that club, there was women there in their early 60s, and they sat with their overcoat all day. Wouldn't take their feckin' coat off. They must have thought I was from Mars. Now they all dress in light colours and all, it's different altogether. One woman said, "You're an inspiration to us all."
I don't know. I'm not charmed with being 100. I would have rather gone before that. I really would. Because all my family are gone. I'm the last, you see. And I feel as if I'm deserted.
It would be uneasy about it all the same. Well, you would. There's a bit of fear. Because my sister in Belmacona, the one, she always asks that, why wouldn't you have fear? How do you know what? How do I know what? I said, don't I know that I never done anything wrong? Never killed anyone or never said a bad word about anyone in a way. And I said, I have no fear in the world. And oh, well, for you. She said, well, I haven't. I'd say, what would I be afraid of?
When I get into the bed at night, I say my prayers and what I have to say. But to say, I wonder will I see morning? And I look at my daughter, she's fixed me up in bed, and I look at her and say, will I see you again? That's what I think when I'm going to bed. And I never know. None of us know what's coming to us.
Do I believe in God? I don't know. I try to believe in Him. There are times when I'm sure, and there are times when I'm not sure. Depends on the circumstances. For instance, I had a sister. She had a bad ear, and the screams that she had when she had the earache, and I know what an earache is because I used to have them once upon a time. And she was screaming and she pleading with God to just leave her alone for a little minute. That's how she used to say. Only a little minute, just ease the pain. And she died anyway. And I didn't believe in God for a long time afterwards. I was saying, why would she, an innocent person like her, have to suffer so much for nothing? I was saying, I often said to myself, you queer God if you say that's the sort it is.
You don't know whether what you hear or what you believe is the real truth or not. Can anyone else prove it? You know.
You drive a car, you take out insurance. Why do you take out insurance? Are you going deliberately going to have an accident so that you'll have insurance to cover it? It wouldn't be a good idea to have a little bit of spiritual insurance, just in case you might be wrong.
But I'm still trying to think, what is life? What's the meaning of life? I suppose we're here to do God's will for us.
He wants to have us happy at the end, and he wants to have us with him always. And he has given us our life to prepare for that, to prepare for our next life.
And I believe that we'll all be in a place, this is my belief, of rest and peace until the next world. That's when there's a general need, like I learned at school. Why is there need of a general judgment? And the answer was, there is need of a general judgment, that the providence of God, which often in this world permits the good to suffer and the wicked to prosper, may appear just before all men. So there will be a general judgment. And that could be in 1,000,000 years, or who knows what's time. Time is, you don't talk about time in the next world.
If Christ died for all the sins in the world, why would he send you to hell?
We have one in between then, purgatory. That's not too bad. We got there, we'd be all right. We might get out of it sometime. We will go to hell. We're doomed.
I'm doing my best anyway to get to the heaven. Send me prayers and looking after the family and be nice to everybody.
Looking forward to the hereafter.
So when you get to the gates of heaven, what do you think you'll say to St. Peter?
What would I say? Only, how you doing? How's your cutting?